Hey there, thanks for watching. In this video, I'm going to share an update on my plan to financial independence, financial freedom, and kind of give you an update on what's going on in my life and some of the factors that will influence my journey to financial independence and my journey to financial freedom and how I plan to address those items. So if you're interested in hearing more about my plan to financial independence and how it's going, then just stick around. So on this channel, I share my personal finance journey and the things that I learn along the way. I do not have a finance background, but I decided to become good with money about 10 years ago when I found myself in close to $17,000 worth of consumer loan debt with almost no income. I just decided to stop spending more than I earned and to become better with money. So this channel is my way of sharing everything that I've learned and kind of documenting my progress going forward. So I've been posting to this channel for about 5-6 years now, and this is sort of my way of updating my financial progress. And while I am behind where studies and numbers show that I should be for my age, I have made a ton of progress in the time that I've been posting. So I went from a negative net worth in those 5 years to a positive net worth, and over the past 2 years in particular, my net worth has roughly tripled. So that's an exciting update to share. The only vehicles that I currently invest in are my company-sponsored 401k and a very small Roth IRA that I have. And at the moment, I am not even currently maxing out my allowable contributions, meaning I'm not hitting that 19.5 contribution for 2021 for the 401k, nor the $6,000 contribution for the Roth. I'm funding them, just not as much as I could be. And that is one of my goals, is to fully fund those items, because that is going to be my primary vehicle, again, to financial independence. So that's the method that I'm using, and those are the vehicles that I'm using currently to get to financial independence and financial freedom. Simple tax-advantaged investment accounts and maxing them out to their fullest. Once I get to that point where I am fully maxing out those accounts, I estimate that it will take me roughly 15 years to hit financial independence once I'm maxing out those accounts. My financial independence number is right around $750,000 to $800,000 because my income is lower, my expenses are lower, and I will need a lower number to reach that financial freedom point. For me, financial freedom is simply being able to choose what I do with my time and not being tied to needing a steady income. The faster I can hit that point of financial independence, financial freedom, the better, I figure. However, this is the general update that I am kind of working on, and part of the reason why I think most people don't achieve financial independence. And that's simply because everyday life gets in the way. So if you're looking at financial independence, financial freedom, that's something way in the future. Whereas everyday life and the needs and the wants and the desires that come into play today can tend to overshadow that way in the future number. The future, if you're lucky, if you're blessed, the future will come, but today is guaranteed. So it's easy to see why people kind of get caught up, where I get caught up in the everyday wants and needs and desires over the future concerns. So as far as updates go, what's going on in my life and what's happening, I had mentioned kind of in the live streams that I'd done that I was planning on doing some traveling. I did that traveling and it was phenomenal. I went to Paris for a week and it was great. My airfare and hotel were gifted, and I only had to pay for transportation and food, so I was able to keep my expenses relatively low. I also invested in some new headshots and photography while I was there. I figured, why the heck not? Because it's a gorgeous setting, why not do that? So that was the largest expense, and that was about $500. And again, I felt that this was an investment actually in the future, because I plan and hope and would like to be able to use those photographs going forward for maybe some future business updates, and I'm looking to deduct that as a business expense. So that's kind of the second aspect, is how am I going to increase my income, which is kind of a continual ongoing question and something that I'm working towards. So there's increasing income as well as balancing the current expenses of the current day today with that long-term future planning. The future isn't guaranteed, today is guaranteed, and it's, again, that's why I tend to get so caught up in what's happening today as opposed to that future planning. So what's going on with my life right now is kind of just those normal milestones that kind of come up in everyday life, weddings, kids, families, things like that. And for me, at least, it's tough to balance those milestone events with also planning for the future. And I aim to kind of keep my head in the midst of any milestone events that may come up. This is the single biggest challenge that I face in my life currently, is balancing those milestone moments and events with future planning, and not allowing that mindset of enjoying the moment and relishing kind of the celebrations that come up in everyday life, and not losing my head in that financially, but also thinking about the future and balancing out future concerns with present enjoyment. That is my single biggest challenge at this point, single biggest challenge. And that's something that I kind of continually, it's not a struggle, it's a negotiation, I think, that I would call that. So just for example, I have this spending plan in mind, and on sort of my budget, I budget in Excel, and I do less of a monthly reconciliation than sort of a daily line item identification. I put in everything I spend every single day. I track it for myself. I also track it through my bank account. I reconcile my bank statements. And I also just connected my bank account to mint.com, and I've been looking at some of my transactions there. I still prefer to track via Excel because I can keep track of my cash spending in there also, although I'm trying to bring a little bit more automation into my life. So on the topic of balancing present enjoyment with future concern and future investment, this is sort of, again, my ongoing daily negotiation. And when I was thinking about my spending for this week, I had this sort of, I won't call it a strict budget, but a spending plan in mind that I wanted to be very disciplined and only spend on the necessities. For me, that's food and fuel. That's groceries and gas for my car. So I had this in mind, and then I'm looking down because I use my planner every single day. I am a huge planner, and I'm a paper planner, and I use it. So it's a useful tool for me, which again also can be deducted as a business expense. So I have this planner. It's time to order a new planner, and I was kind of looking around. This one costs like $10 from Target, but my biggest challenge is finding a weekly layout that runs the way I want it to, with all full 7 days on one page with a full weekend and then a page for notes on the other side. This layout is very rare, so when I find it, I jump on it. So all of this to say that I found a planner that I like, and it was $50, which was not a planned expense. And around this time, I can start budgeting in that amount. So I ended up buying that planner for $50, and I'm like, oh, it's totally worth it, but it's also it's an outlay that I wasn't expecting. So I spent that. But then once that was triggered in my head, like, oh, I can rationalize this, all these other expenses, the things that I wanted, started popping up in my head, in my sort of field of awareness. And I'm thinking, reel it back in, come back to the basics and back to that spending plan that I had set out, and really be focused in that. And it really took me some time to reel that back. So one of the expenses that I didn't buy was a bunch of body care from Bath & Body Works. I did not buy that. I was like, which would have been around the $50 mark as well. I'm thinking, oh, I have a coupon. Oh, I have this. I'm like, I don't need it. It's not an essential. This is not something that will greatly contribute to my happiness right now. That's just an example of balancing present concerns with future investments. And I know that many more of these items will come up, especially around the holiday. But something I really want to focus on is being very, very disciplined with myself and very focused and strategizing on what is most important. And for now, it is being able to be present and spending the time with the people that are closest to me right now, and then investing for the future, because that will ultimately bring a sense of peace and freedom that I desire my money to do. That's what I want to use my money for, is that peace and freedom and good in the world. What are some of the strategies that I'm using to keep myself focused in this plan? And that's simple things that I've talked about before. I've talked about using a wish list. That's probably one of my biggest items, and the thing that's worked the best for me is when I want something, rather than clicking that buy button, I put it on my wish list. I list date, what it is, the amount, and why I think that I want it. And if I'm really honest, and if I let myself sit with it for a week or so, I realize that the temporary joy that I feel from getting that item doesn't compare with the long-term happiness and peace that comes from having a solid investment future, a solid savings future, and a solid emergency fund. So this is just one of the basic tools that I use to remind myself of what's really important ultimately in my journey to financial independence, in my path to financial freedom. So that's just a quick update of where I am and what I'm thinking about, what's kind of making a difference in my life right now. So let me know if you have any questions. Let me know how you're doing in your financial journey. It's great to hear from you in the comments, especially if you could please give this video a like as well. It's a huge help to me and my channel, and I appreciate it. Thanks as always for watching, and I hope that you'll keep watching. Bye.